Hello everyone, and welcome to another wavelength series. My name is Waveney. I am a leadership mindset coach, and I help new managers master their mindset, their communication, and their influence. Now, are you ready to get on the same wavelength? Fabulous. So if you have ever avoided, or I should ask you, have you ever avoided a tough conversation with an employee because you don't want to put them out of bread? Or maybe you don't know what I'm talking about. So let me phrase it this way. Let me ask it this way. Have you ever avoided a tough conversation with an employee because you don't want them to lose their job? If you said yes to both, then this video is for you. And so the putting people out of bread dilemma. Now, if you grow up in the Caribbean, depends on what island you grow up on, you may or may not have heard this term, I don't want to put anybody out of bread, which simply means that I don't want to put anybody out of a job. And this, what you're feeling, if you said yes to those two questions, right? What you're feeling isn't just about your management style. It isn't just about you trying to be nice so you're avoiding the conversation. This is 400 years of trauma showing up and impacting you so that you're making that decision. And so I'll explain in a few minutes. But before we get into it, what I want to ask you is, I want you to think about who taught you about leadership. Who were your role models growing up? Seriously, think about it. Was it your parents? Was it your pastor? Was it your first boss? Was it your teachers? Was it your Sunday school teacher? And so now here's a real question. What was their leadership style like? I bet I could guess. I bet you it was do as I say type of thing, right? I bet it was I talk, you listen. I bet it was I am the boss, you are the employee, or you are the worker. I really don't like the word worker, but you get the picture, right? And then this is the last question I'm going to ask you before we delve into it. When you think about the authority figures in your life growing up, in your childhood, what comes up for you? What feeling comes up for you? Is it the feeling of fear? Is it a feeling like you're walking on eggshells? Is it a combination of both? It's probably something like that, right? I want you to hit the like button. I know I'm not on a live stream, but hit the like button if you've ever worked for someone who led through fear. And so this is not an accident. All these things are not accidents. This was what was modeled for us. This was a model that we were shown, and I'm going to share with you where that model came from. But before I do that, I want to share something interesting that I learned when I was doing my getting certified in mindset coaching and all these other stuff that I have. Now, one of the things that I learned is that trauma can live up to 17 generations. Trauma can live in the body up to 17 generations. Trauma is really distress, how you react. You're distressed to an incident, but the feelings are trapped in your body, right? And so think about the fact that maybe you have an irrational, let's call it an irrational fear. And the only reason, no disrespect, the only reason I'm saying irrational is because you don't know where you got it from. You haven't had that experience, right? But you are deathly afraid of that thing. Why is that? Could be trauma showing up. If you talk to your mom, you talk to your grandmother, you talk to somebody in your family probably experienced something, and you know you didn't have that experience, it shows up. And so I just use that example to show you. As a matter of fact, there is a study, a study in science, it's called epigenetics. It studies that, how trauma can be passed down. And so where did we get this from? Right, back to what we're talking about, this dilemma. Where did we get this broken model of leadership from? Well, we inherited this broken model of leadership. If you think about the Caribbean and the history, slavery, colonialism, the plantation system, all of that, the plantation system in particular, you think about the plantation owner or the overseer, they were the authority figure. And in that world, it was do as I say or else. There's it. Do as I say or else. There's no room for discussion, right? And so the overseer's job on the plantation was to extract the maximum amount of labor out of people. They were coerced, right, through fear and punishment. But sadly enough, this is the only do as I say, fear through leading, fear and punishment if we didn't. This is the only model of leadership many of us saw when we were growing up. Now you might say to me, Waveney, you know, I'm not from the Caribbean. I find your content interesting. It doesn't matter. This, you don't need to be from the Caribbean to understand this, because if you are going to be leading people, and especially if you're going to be leading people in the Caribbean, it's important that you know this, right? It's important that you know this. So stick with me and I'll show you. So we inherited this broken model of leadership from the system that has been modeled to our ancestors, and even now, right? Now it's changing a little bit, but sometimes we wonder where things come from and we have no idea. It's just, you know, we don't question it because it's subconscious, it's the norm, it just happens. Well, I wanted to bring this to the fore, and before I go on, I wanted to bring this to the fore, this conversation to the forefront, because being in HR, working with expats, working with my Caribbean people, I see how difficult of a time that our Caribbean leaders have it, our Caribbean managers in the workplace have it. We vacillate between two extremes, right? Because there was this fear and punishment system, we vacillate. This do as I say. Caribbean managers do one of two things. So it's either there's the little massa, the little micromanager, they're micromanaging, everything goes to them, they're criticizing, they lead through fear, they're always watching, it's like do it my way, you can't question them, you can't even ask a question, you can't even share an opinion, it's their way or the highway, right? You know anybody like this? Have you ever worked with anybody like this, right? And so that's one extreme. Or the other extreme is they don't hold people accountable. They don't want to put people out of bread, right? They don't want to put people out of bread. They talk. And you hear this a lot with Caribbean people. I tell you, talk to them, you know. Or this person will say, talk to them. Talk to them. I don't want them to lose it. We vacillate between these two extremes. And so the latter, I don't want to put anybody out of bread person, let people slide. There's no accountability, right? Because they end up being everybody's friend, but nothing gets done. And so we either too soft or too harsh, but none of the two is leadership. Both are trauma responses. And so this, I don't want to put people out of bread, is a real thing. You know, it's a real thing. Because we end up with the question, right? And the question I think that a lot of our managers have is that, okay, so how do I hold people accountable without becoming that boss that I said I wouldn't be like, how do I hold people accountable without turning into that person that I feared when I was growing up, my first boss or whomever. And this is a trap. This is a trap. Because we feel as though we have to be one or the other when leadership isn't that way. You can lead people, you could manage people, you could hold people accountable and support them. There's nothing that says that accountability don't come with support. As a matter of fact, if you're going to hold somebody accountable, you have to support them because you have to show them. You have to show them, right? It's like, if you go into a job and they don't train you, and you hear stories like this, they don't give you the proper training, but yet at the end of your probationary period, they're letting you go. Why? They're holding you accountable, but they haven't provided the support. That's not right. That is not right. And so we have this thing where we either are, I don't want to put people out of bread, because in the Caribbean, our families are close-knit. You know, you're probably working with the uncle, cousin, somebody for the aunt, the mother of your classmate, right? You go to the supermarket, you are bound to run into somebody that you work with. No. You go to a fete, it's the same thing. And so we know that if someone loses their job, and this is a thing in the Caribbean, is that we often know a little bit more about people's personal situation, right? We know. We either know that maybe they had a really rough childhood, they're the first one in their family to hold down a great job, or whatever the situation is. But we tend to know a little bit more, and it makes, you know, the accountability piece difficult. But it makes it difficult because we're seeing accountability in a different light. We're seeing it as an all or nothing. We're seeing it how it was modeled to us. Because back on the plantation, if you didn't do what was said, that's it. That you're out of here, right? And I think that we feel that way. When we have to have these tough conversations with people, we feel that it's that trauma response coming up, and we don't want to put people out of bread, right? And so let me know if this resonates with you. Now, before I go on to share with you the difference between like what a boss looks like, because the plantation needed bosses, we don't need that anymore. We need a new style of leadership, right? I want to share with you one of the reasons I decided to do this video. When I was preparing for this video, I remember back in 2006, I had a general manager. I was working at the Marriott. He came in, and he was from Cuba. He grew up in Cuba and then migrated to the US. And he just loved being in St. Kitts. And he brought in this lady named Sandra Husbands. As a matter of fact, she lives in Barbados. I don't think she does this training anymore, because I did some research and she is a part of, I think, Mia Motley's government. But he brought in Sandra Husband and her husband, right? And Miss Husbands, did a fabulous job. She did a cultural training, and she did it with she did a general session with the staff, she did one with local managers, she did one with the expat managers. And one of the things she brought up is, she brought up the example about water and our fear of water and the fact that we live on an island, but many of us don't know how to swim. We never learn how to swim. There's this fear, don't be careful of the water, don't go in the water. And she's like, where did you think that come from? Where did that come from? And she made the parallel between that fear and slavery. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Remember what I said too about trauma living in our DNA up to 17 generations, right? And when you think about it, when they teach you about slavery, people were either thrown overboard, so it's a real fear. People either jumped overboard because they realized what was going on. The people who died were thrown overboard. So either way, the sea was seen as a bad, fearful thing. And it was something that stuck with me. It was an aha moment. It was that. She spoke about productivity. She spoke about, how the slaves slowed down work. And she made a parallel to the workforce, right? The current workforce, where you go into jobs, businesses, and if people don't like something, they'll slow everything down, right? Anyway, those are the two things I remember. She said a lot more, but those are the two things I remember. 2006 was a long time. And so there's a quote by some famous person that said, if you don't know your history, if you don't look at your history, you're condemned to repeat it. And so this is something I wanted to bring to the forefront, because you may be struggling to hold people accountable, and your idea of accountability might be a particular thing. You might have a particular idea, and when we talk about having difficult conversations with people at work about their performance or what have you, you may have this you may be terrified, and like super terrified, and not know why. And this may be the reason why. So I hope this helps you. Anyway, let's look at, I want to run through these really quickly. The difference between a boss and a leader, because there's a different way to lead, right? So a boss says, do as I say. A leader says, let me show you how. Let me show you why. A boss hoards information. A leader shares knowledge freely. A boss says, that's not my problem. A leader asks, how can I remove the obstacles for you? A boss takes the credit for the wins. A leader says, my team did this. A boss blames others for the losses. A leader says, I'll take the responsibility. A boss creates fear. A leader creates safety. A boss drives people. A leader develops people. A boss's position gives them the authority. A leader's influence earns respect. A boss asks, what can you do for me? A leader asks, how can I help you to grow? A boss controls the work. A leader empowers the employee. And so the plantation needed bosses for that time, but our Caribbean workplaces need leaders. Drop an emoji in the comment if this has resonated with you. So yes, we don't get to choose our history. The history is our history. We had that modeled for us even growing up. One of the things that I've learned, and I think it was Maya Angelou I heard say this, is that people do what they can with the information that they have. So that boss you had growing up, that our parents, do as I say, teachers, pastors, that sort of thing, they're just modeling that was what was taught to them, right? But we can choose to make a difference. We can be the difference maker. Last week I spoke about using your platform, and this is one way we can use our platform and we can make a difference, because holding someone accountable also means giving them the support as well. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? We could create a vision instead of just giving orders. We could develop people instead of just using them. We could build people's confidence instead of ruling through fear. We could empower teams instead of controlling everything. We could serve people's success instead of demanding results. And this is how you become an influential leader. This is how you make a difference. And so I really hope that you enjoyed today's topic. I know I certainly enjoyed bringing it to you, researching stuff and sharing with you. And think about it. You can hold people accountable, but you can also provide support. It doesn't have to be I don't want to put somebody out of bread. It doesn't have to result in that. All right. And just one last thing, I do have on my, if you're someone who's struggling with having conversations, you don't know how to have them, these critical conversations and stuff like that, I have a course, a digital course. It's called Crucial Conversations from Freeze to Flow, and it really breaks down how your body interprets these types of situations. It gives you tools and techniques on how to regulate your nervous system, and it gives you scripts and so forth, so that when you're going to have these conversations, you can use them. So let me know if you're interested. Actually, I'm going to put my link to my digital store down below this video. Reach out to me. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you on another wavelength.